Okay, so the heat pump, one of the things the guy said, see, this is, I have had, like, I've been, I hate to say, but it's just the truth. Like, lust and pornography have been a part of my life for a long time, and I hate it. I hate it. And, people don't, my balls are big. That's why I kind of pridefully kind of step out of this because everybody's got something in here. This whole diagram here is, different thoughts about what can happen. And the bottom line, what I think is the primary Christian message, I wish you could see, but the Christian message here is based on Matthew. Can I write at the same time? Matthew 7:24 and 25. Okay? To get your life set on Jesus, like where this is me or this is you, but anyone, any human being, this is why it's a stick figure and so nice, like it's unisex and everything, girl, boy, I mean, we shouldn't even be the transgender, but that's the bottom line is no matter what you are, if you effed yourself up and made you some kind of transgender, mumbo jumbo lump of new person, it doesn't change your heart. Heart is pure here, okay? That got me into things that do matter, but the point is that every person, okay, needs to get to this place right here where this is your rock. So kind of like this heat pump system was kind of saying, and I think even that he said 1,000,000,000 times a day or something, where you could do like me and Google about heat pumps. But I like that idea because you can have this happen. Like you can be at times in your life or anytime. The devil's always lurking like a lion trying to mess you up. So we just need to stay back on track or however this goes. But if we're always filtering every input in our life through understanding this, not even just understanding it, but being rock solid. So how do you get to this point? Well, over here I did a little bit of thinking about that. I've been to jail. You could be a monk. Jesus says things here, this, like hating your parents. Well, he doesn't, no, that's not, but the point is of why does he have to say that like so firmly? Because in this cycle of things that can grab onto a person, we're all normal. Like we do need money, like a job. So if the job comes down here and becomes our primary base, then we get all effed up. We become a slave to sin. So we can't think straight. The job, like even as I was thinking about being a CPA and all my pride. And I mean, there was, I had to work super hard to get my CPA license, and but it became a bit of an idol. These words that we use, you could become a slave to your job. That becomes, and it doesn't mean. See, that's the joy. You don't have to like say, this guy here, you, me, or whoever. You don't have to say like when you become a Christian or whatever. You don't have to say "f you, job." F you, well, you do have to say F, well, you have to say some of this we have to talk about here in a second, but medication, we're not saying we just need to not have women or, this is kind of confusing, but not really, okay? Parents, welfare, like, where you can become attached, and what can you become attached to? I think it's so profoundly good, this whole insight, because it's the reality of life. I think it just describes this so well. That's why I want us to be a training, so I can see and track, and if people start, because people can put it into a different format, and however, to make it prettier, like when I was trying to learn about, heat pumps, I watched about 3 or 4 till I could try to finally find one that said it, and I'm watching about 3 or 4, and I'm kind of cycling them around. Well, if somebody with any video training or whatever can certainly do it better than this, but the principle, I have not really heard anybody say it as good as this, and this is not new. This is not new ways. What do they say? Nothing in Christianity nothing is new. We're turning it over, but I do think that way of thinking is fresh, new, whatever. So if it helps you, I just know it helps me most fundamentally because of my deepest over here. So, and I even thought on the way home because I went to apply for this job in HVAC, and on the way I was thinking about this, different things here, and I thought, because people think, can I turn this? I don't want to turn it around. People think, technology is bad, you just have to listen here, but people think that, well, because you have problems here, then you can't be a good advisor to people that need marriage help. And I'm saying my primary message in all of life, I can show you that, this tattoo here that says, I want to scooch this up here. I want to change divorce in America from 50 to 20%. Well, how can I do that if I don't know how to stay married? Well, that is kind of a good point, except that I'm trying so hard to be solving problems. I don't know. You can figure that out. But what I can make your own point. But what I'm saying for my own darn self is there's this movie out here called 300, the number 2 one. Okay, what's it called? Rise of an Empire, I think. Yeah, you know. And inside of that movie is this sex scene. Okay, listen, these are the words because this leads to something else. But I'm telling you, before God and everybody that wants to listen to this, I can watch that video. And it's not that this isn't the first time that I've thought these things. I've just been scared, and I think it was for good reason, because Jesus wasn't the base. But, like, I can watch that scene there, and it doesn't get into me. But then at the same time, it doesn't mean that it doesn't happen. Good Lord heavens knows that, number one, practically, we can't avoid a life. If you're like me and lust is a problem or whatever, but other people, like, how about food? You know, food is probably the biggest one of things that upset, you know, that one upsets me because it's all part of this, you know. If you are fat and overweight, sorry, like, I'm just not going to tell you that it's not the same kind of a problem. You got to get this straight down here, okay? And food is another good example because it's in one of Maslow's needs over here. We need food. And then I say, oh yeah? You know, you got to start to ask some of these questions. When you're down here, you know, I think, are there words about being a slave to righteousness? I think so. Like, no matter what you do, if you can, that's when you know you're kind of graduated in this level of enlightenment, or however. You can respond, theologians, anybody that ever might listen to this, but no matter what you take away from me, okay, no matter what, and even Maslow's basic needs. Look, you can cut off my head, you can take my fingers, but I think you have to be at that point. Jesus tries to say it even nicer, like, just hate your parents. We're not even talking about cutting your head off. You know? Oh, by the way, I died on a cross. You know, and Paul's even like that. No matter what suffering you do, oh, you like food? Okay, well, just get it straight. Like, we're not, but then at the same time, that's why I think this is so helpful. And case in point, even this morning, because, you know, like, where my mind was in the example with Joseph, they didn't tell you that yet, but the thing I was thinking of is with Joseph, he fled, right? Joseph fled. I'm even going to write that down. Fled. And this is hard to do because that's pretty good typing with looking at my video. Like, maybe if it was me, let's say me now, and Pharaoh's wife, it's Potiphar's wife, right? And tries to lure him in wrong. He ran out the door. Like, if I'd be watching this thing here, and definitely inside of all the people ever taught me how to get out of sexual addiction, you know, you flee and you get things like covenant eyes and all this stuff. And I always said, this doesn't make any sense at all, because if your heart isn't right, you're going to see it anyway. Like, it doesn't, that's just basically just not the right strategy. And I'm only saying I'm living proof to how this works. Just like, you know, and it's not that easy. Like, you do need food, you don't need sex. I mean, there are things here that I'm saying, and we can talk about whatever, but that is important, okay? That's what you need, shepherds to guide through this. But what is crystal clear and without debate is this idea of a cycle here of the things that can get happening. And where, you know, parents are a really good one. Like, this guy named, what's his name? Dan Allender. I mentioned it the other day because he came back into my head. This is what he studies for his whole life. He's a doctor. I ain't a doctor, but in this case, you know, if anything he ever said, because I went to a training that he did once in this big church and a bunch of people were there. But he said in there that parents, you know, there was like this holy turn, like when you give your daughter, you know, to the spouse, and then the parents turn. You know, I think it's always for the bride, right? Like, who gives this woman to be married to this guy? And he was describing that. I think he called it, I don't know what he called it, but I remember it as a holy turn. Like, I mean, because he said, it was just kind of drawing attention, like, here, we raised you and did all these things, but right now we're just going to exit live. Like, you're not ours anymore, you're your spouse's. But drawing attention to how effed up that gets all the time. But it makes sense, because when you're raised and all these things, that they become so important. That's why Jesus has to clarify. You better get this straight, because this all matters. You can become a slave to your parents. You can become a slave to welfare. Like, or relationships in general. Nothing, absolutely nothing. Number 1, 10 commandment. Let me draw 10 commandment. You know, number 1 of the 10 commandments is don't have anything else before me. The Pharisees say, what's the rule? That love the Lord your God with all your heart. It's all saying the same thing 700 different ways. that you got to have rock, sound doctrine here. I just think it raises some very interesting things, because even this morning, like I'm definitely an expert in this. Okay, women, I like them. So I can speak very clearly to this thing here, but in the back of my mind, it was like you can become like with these Me Too guys and all this girls, you become really scary. And literally this morning on Facebook, I was talking to somebody where it fit into this category. We talked right into this scary area here. And if you watch my teachings from the other day, or responses to things, I'm just like, man, we're just fine. Like, we're just fine. And you don't want us to do those things or however this gets, but let's not forget that you're the Salma Hayek people that attract us. Like, there's a dynamic here that we have to be, I think that we have to be careful here, because we don't want to be necessarily, the base teaching here is that we don't need to flee from this. Okay, really down to it. That's why I want to be America's next pastor, because there's dynamics like this that really need to be explored. I'm not saying, of course, that we should hurt spouses and do like sexual things like priests did to boys and whatever, but it all comes still back to this. Okay. But if we understand urges and desires and all this, it doesn't because then we become crazy people and try to say we don't need food and we don't, well, no, but I just thought the way that this lady and I interacted this morning was healthy, fine. Because I could, for instance, be her friend. And nobody in God's green earth can argue from God to anybody that is bad, okay? Does it raise risk? Because even she was saying, I got a husband and all this, and that's fine. Like, dude, I've been wanting to be on this path before, but I think now I'm at a fine place to really talk about it, because I'm just living it. And that's my take on it. So the preaching here isn't to use covenant eyes and it's basically just bullshit. It's not really the deepest message. And even like the training from Joseph about fleeing, put me into what would have happened if Joseph had just stayed there, right? If he didn't flee from her, dude, what are you doing? What would have she done? The thing was because he fled, it ripped his garment. If he had stayed together, it just raises things. And then really to embrace her as a person, this is how I'm thinking about this. I mean, it's one thing to sit there and kind of confront her in a Matthew 18 context, right? Like really just having that spirit, like, okay, lady, intellectually, like he's smart. Like this is his head and this is him thinking. Like, okay, I'm thinking about Matthew 18 and now you've sinned against me. I'm concerned, right? I think we need to have a little chat here, and I need to go find some elders. But he's calm. He's calm because he's on the rock of Jesus. But he wasn't, okay? I mean, we talk about Jesus like he doesn't make any mistakes, but he did end up in jail here, okay? I could get into some things about that dynamic. I think he didn't do it perfectly right. Yeah, I really believe that. He's not the model of how to handle sexual temptation. He should have stayed and had a little chat. Treated her with respect, maybe. Like, what did he do or apologize? Even her pastor one time say that. And what did I do to get you attracted to me? Like, I need to apologize. We need to talk about this, like, professionally. That's so much more loving than really what he did. He fled and he was already, do not judge me, but he was, like, hold on a second. What's going on here? Can we bring healing to this instead of running? But I'm saying that, oh my, I bet she was really pretty. So, I mean, there's a lot of dynamic here. But when we start to close this stuff off, humans take paths of more trouble, and it leads to affairs and divorce. That's why I'm so into just trying to teach into, like, there's these things that my counselor does, and here we go down a path, and I don't have enough paper. That's why somebody's going to have to do this better. But if we can, instead of saying, like, don't be attracted to Pharaoh's wife, how about then in Sunday school when we get together later that week, we could be at a place where we could be like, hi, my name's Joseph, and I was attracted to Potiphar's wife this week. Oh, well, thank you, Joseph, for sharing that. I mean, who in Sunday school in America does this, but why could we not? Because the greatest call here, if we had it, like I was saying, with sports and stuff, like, we're not saying he's a bad guy for thinking that she was pretty. I'm sure she was. Like, we're more like, okay, well, what about your wife over here? You know, what's going on in the deficiency here? This is all, hard conversation. But when it doesn't get dealt with, the outcome is affairs and divorce and a whole bunch of other shit that's way worse than dealing with the pain that would have happened if we just would have addressed the problem. And ultimately, I think in so many scenarios of all of life, the good news, when people say, what does gospel mean? You see me preaching here and they can't see my face because I don't want to risk turning it around. But the good news is we actually have something to trust in, that if we get this straight, if we get to the point where it's just no matter what you do, this lady over here I was talking to, you want to give me the middle finger and never talk to me again, and we talked about something I know you were half interested in, okay? But if you don't, well, then that's fine. I'm still down here as happy as can be, basically ignoring you for the rest of my life. I mean, I am no longer a slave to sin. Ugh. And, okay, so I think I'm now going to just kind of repeat myself, that it's not a once and done thing. I think then I'm done. But this is just a cycle, of all these things, the inputs in life. But if we are like the heat pump system, if we're always coming back to that cooling in place and it's not a perfect analogy to the heat pump, but the cycle flow. The billion times a day, if we make 35,000 decisions a day, the heat pump guy said a billion, or I don't remember what he said, a lot, more than 35,000. If we're making 35,000 decisions a day, then we better be running it through some kind of a system where all these pressures that happen in life that try to take us off this rock, right, are always getting filtered, so that basically 35,000, a million times a day, we're coming back to this holy good place. Now we're equipped to handle each of these things with its own proper place. It doesn't preach that we should give our jobs the middle finger. It doesn't preach that we should give our parents the middle finger. It doesn't preach that, welfare is outright bad. It doesn't preach, necessarily that medication over here is bad. Everything has to have a place. Maslow has a lot of smart ideas about what's good. We do need relationships. These different things that can really... I just think, no, it's not think, I know. I am experiencing this, and I intend to preach it loud and clear and keep on preaching it, because I think this is the fundamental teaching. How many times can I make a dot here? There's a lot of dots. This has just become a little dot game. But how many times can we possibly say, as a Christian pastor person, Bible person, not over here, let's open up our Bibles to read Psalm 25 and talk about how wonderful that is. That's all fine, but even that needs to get filtered through this understanding. This is base. Like Proverbs 3, when I think about my favorite pastor, one of them, Charles Stanley, Proverbs 3, is it 2? I forget. I didn't know better, but trust in the Lord with all your heart. And I think it's all wrapped in the same consequence. When Billy Graham is calling people forward, it's still doing this. Calling them, this is the place where everything, that's the primary thing. And I think as a church we need to do better at just continually. We're not trying, basically Billy Graham set people off on the wrong tangent of thinking the job here is to get people saved. No, that's only maybe the first time in their life where they even started to think about giving God first place. Then they go out and see the hot girl, and well, that's out the door. Or they eat something or anything that gets all messed up. No, this is a cycle flow. We're not bad people because we got tempted or drawn off track. We just need to keep coming back to this daily, moment to moment of every single day. But to rest confidently when we're here, that no matter what happens, we are just in this rock place of not being in danger, and that we trust God with meeting all of our needs. Oh, that is so good. I wish you could see my face. All right, here we go. Posting away to YouTube number 2. Part 2 of YouTube number 1.